go over these because some people are done. I don't want to make them stay here too far past the time. Okay, so if you have the disease, let's go through that. So if you have it, then 95% of them will test positive. So it means that if you have it, 95% of them will test positive, which means how many test negative?
5%.
Remember, all these have to add up to 1 or 100%. Every one of these little branchy things. All right, so then 95% of people who do not have it test negative. So if you don't have it, there's a 95% chance you test negative. That's good, right? Because if you don't have it, you should test negative. So we want to know the probability that you have a false negative. In other words, it says you're negative, but you really have it. That's a huge problem, right? Because you think you're fine and you have the disease, and then you go along and you don't treat it. So here, this would be, how do you get to this spot? 0.03 times 0.05, 0.0015. 0.0015. This one over here, the other one that's bad is if you don't have the disease and then you think you do. Kind of like Queen Latifah in Last Holiday. Right? Anybody see that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that was great, right? She thinks she's going to die. She goes and blows all her money. All right, so this is 0.97 times 0.02, 0.0194. So that's that right there. So,
I think.
everybody on board?
Yeah,
False positive. Right. So they say they have it when they really don't. So a false positive means you don't have it and it says you do. A positive says you have the disease. So a false positive is saying you have it when you don't. That's this one here. You don't have it, but it says you do. So that's this one. Is that everyone on board? The false negative is when it says you don't when you really do. So that's this one here. Everybody good with that? Okay. The other one was part 3, the tree. Aha. So here's the rest of the tree. So out of the men, how many play soccer? 16 out of 34. How many play basketball? 15 out of 34. And how many play tennis? 3 out of 34. Good? So everybody okay with comfortable with making these trees? What's the probability you're going to need to make a tree for the exam? 100%.
Very likely.
So females. So this should be 11 out of 24 play soccer. Basketball, 4 out of 24 play basketball, and 9 out of 24 play tennis. All right, so now, find soccer given you're a woman. Given you're a woman means what's probability you're a woman?
100%.
100%. So that means you know you are standing right here. If you're standing right there, what's the probability that you play soccer? 11 out of 24. Everybody see that? 11 out of 24. Now, find the probability of men and basketball. Men and basketball. That is this one right here. So that's 3 out of 58. 34 out of 58 times 15 out of 34. That is very bad writing of mine. It looks like a 1. 34.
5 14.
So yeah, so 34s will cancel out. And you'll end up getting 15 over 58. 15 over 58. Now looking at the table, what's probably that you're a man and you play basketball? Man, and how many men play basketball? 15. Remember, if you're not given anything, it's always out of everybody. How many people do we have all together? 58. If it's not given, if there's nothing that's given, not given man or basketball or woman, then it's always out of everyone. Always. So it's going to be out of 58, 15 out of 58. Given is the only time you have something different. Right? And again, because it's given women, you should be dividing by the number of women. Because think of soccer as like soccer given women. You're dividing by the number of women, 24. Okay. And how the tree change, don't worry about that one. It would go the sports first and then man, woman off the side. And the numbers would be slightly different. All right, so I want you guys to, we'll just go through this together. Problem 4. So I want to make sure you guys get it. And it's been a while since we've done it. So, all right, so listen up. Class width of 3. That's not a 5 or a 10 or a 20. Everybody understand? So we're not going to round down to the next, drop down to the next 5 or 0. Instead, we're just going to take the lowest one and start with that. So since it's class width of 3, we're just going to start with 32 as our first lower class limit. Okay, everybody understand why? Because it's not like a 5 or a 10, so we wouldn't round down to that. So class width of 3, just start with 32. Now, do I go like this, 32 to 35? No. Remember, class width of 3 means every class is separated by the next class by the class width. So 32 should go 35, the next class, plus 3, plus 3, plus 3, plus 3, plus 3. 6 classes, I said, yeah? So my data is in whole numbers. So to get to the next one, I subtract a whole number. What's 35 minus 1? 34. What's number comes before 38? 37. Before 41 is 40, 43, 40. I can just add 3 if I want each time. And that also works. Oh, sorry. That's why this is wrong. 46, 49. Okay. Good. Thank you. All right. Now boundaries. Boundaries. So what's the number between, remember I have to, boundaries are between the classes, so between 34 and 35. That's the end of one class and the beginning of the next class. What's the number between 34 and 35? 34.5. So that's his upper boundary and his lower boundary. Between 37 and 38, 37.5. That's his upper boundary and his lower boundary. Everybody kind of following along with that part? And then, well, look, these are all separated by a class width of 3, so I can just add 3 and subtract 3 to get the rest of them. Then we need to find our frequencies. Frequencies. Okay, let's see. How many are between 32 to 34? These 3. Yep. How many are between 35 and 37? Those 3. How many are between 38 and 40? Those 3. This is such a boring little thing here. How many between 40 and 43? These 2. And then 2, and then 3. And then we have relative frequency. So remember, everybody should remember relative frequency is how does it relate to the whole? In other words, what's the ratio? Our ratio of it, what percent is in that class? The ratio of it to the whole. So this is going to be 3 out of 16 because there's 16 altogether. Right? 3 out of 16, I think that was 0.1875. Great. And then this one would also be the same thing because it's 3 out of that. So ideally it's decimals or percents. Good. You guys can kind of figure those ones out. And then we have, the last thing we have is cumulative. Cumulative is, and you need to know the difference between those two. That's the common thing is people screw those up. Relative frequency is the ratios, right, the percents. Cumulative frequency is everything, just think of cumulative GPA, everything that came before up to now. So what's everything that came before up to now frequency-wise? 3. There's just 3 up to now. And look at the second class here. How many are there up to now? 6. Next one. How many are there up to now? 9. Next one, how many are there here up to now? 11. Everybody kind of, does that sort of make sense to folks? Good? All right, great. Sorry, 6 minutes over. Have a good weekend. Study hard.
Do we need any specific things for the test scans on?
Nope. Just I just cut over that one. So bring your binder. And you guys know how to make a histogram, right? Histograms? You guys remember? Yeah, boundaries. I would do boundaries. I would do boundaries, and then over here the
Next week.